Today we are talking about the number one self-care mistake that women make. That mistake is to be disconnected from our own hormonal cycle. Our hormonal cycle literally controls every single element of our entire body, every aspect, every system of our body, our skin, our brain, our nervous system, our muscular system, our organs, all controlled by this hormonal cocktail that is being released through our system in harmony, in alignment with the fluctuation of the moon herself. I see this again and again and again in all of the women that I serve, is that the moment we start to drop into her cycle, whether she bleeds or not, because remember, even if you no longer bleed, even if you no longer have a uterus, you are still experiencing life in a cyclical way, because that is just the reality of the biological system that is woman. And I want to share a story about my experience with this. I mean, it's been a huge awakening. This is the epitome of feminine awakening, to come back into our bodies. And we can talk about communing with our womb or our bodies, but this is where the rubber hits the road as far as our relationship to our bodies is actually concerned. And I can tell you that I purchased a house several months ago, and it was like that month before, the month of, and the month after, it was like all the doing and all the activity on top of my normal life, and this big adrenaline dump constantly, and then the purchase, and then the renovation. It was just 3 months of intensity. And I literally felt, I'm very in tune with my cycle after tracking for many years, and I've come to understand organically that this is my experience, and we can only know our personal experience for ourselves, but I've come to understand that in my luteal phase, before I bleed, towards the end, I get real low. Things get real tough. As the hormonal cocktail's withdrawn, particularly in my emotional realm, it's very sensitive, very empathic, very, just a whole dark night of the soul comes on. And this is was very severe for most of my life, to the point where many of the women in my family, were diagnosed with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoria disorder, and threatened to commit suicide or break up with their partners, right at that time of the month. And it's gotten a lot better for me. But what happened, okay, let me explain my flow. And then we go into the dark womb cave, right? And then we come up into the spring, and for me and my body, I start to feel creative, excited, and then the summer, and I start ovulating, and I can't tell you how fucking good I feel during ovulation. I'm the queen of the world. I can be out in front of anyone. I just ideas are boom, 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 boom. Everything's falling into place. I have tons of energetic resources. I'm working out, and it feels so good. And I can just keep going. And it's just really easy to interact with people and communicate with people. And then the closer we start getting to the blood, the more it's and I can tell you that what happened during my house purchasing process is that for 3 months, I was literally in a slight state of fight or flight. So my nervous system was extremely overactive during that time, overly upregulated. And I felt like I was ovulating every single day. I can almost say that's true, almost even when I was bleeding. But I can tell you that I didn't have that same luteal downturn because I wasn't aware of it, because my stress hormones were overriding. My stress hormones were coming in to make up for where there wasn't estrogen and progesterone. And it was awesome. And it was a prolonged period of stress. Sometimes we go through these periods in ways where it's really not awesome, right? We experience the illness of a family member, the death of a family member, our business threatened, or whatever it is. But for me, because I had to get so much done in a period of 3 months, like it was awesome because I was just energized every day. I didn't have to go, like I didn't have to rest as much. I wasn't sleeping as much, and I felt okay, even though I knew like, when is the shoe gonna drop? And I can tell you that it was 2 months ago that I got back to, normal life. And I experienced an entire month of feeling like I was bleeding, an entire month of being tired, needing extra rest. I never felt like I was ovulating, and I probably was not ovulating. I wasn't checking my temperature, but chances are I did not ovulate that month. And I was like, really? Like, when am I going to get my little cocktail of like delicious hormones so that I can rule the world for a moment, And it just never came. It just never came. And it was the karmic pendulum swinging back into balance. And so this is my second month out of that. And so I always recommend, even if you use an app, which I do as well, to track the cycle, like you always track, in writing as well. And maybe yours is a little neater than mine, but I find this tool absolutely invaluable. You can always get it through the Moon Cycle Magic free gift and the Moon Cycle Magic element of Body Temple Alchemy Mystery Course. So I have one of these for you. If you don't know how to find that, you can just DM me, ask me. But what I noticed this cycle was I got my ovulation back and I felt really amazing during ovulation, but my entire luteal phase was so intense. It was like, it just started really early. Like once I exited ovulation, I was just like, whoa, like emotional, sensitive, and dark night of soul, like much longer this month than normal. And it's very similar to what I experienced as a teenager in early 20s, actually, when I was so dysregulated, so hormonally dysregulated, and on a ton of antidepressants, probably as a result of not being in union with my cycle, but also probably contributed to me not being in union with my cycle. And it's the karmic pendulum. This is what happens when we override our cycle, is we pay for it. And that was only like 2.5, 3 months of intensity. Can you imagine? Probably can, because maybe this is your story as it was for me and so many women. Can you imagine not knowing where you're at in your cycle for years? Can you imagine working out the same right before your blood and on your blood as you do during ovulation? Probably. You can imagine it because you probably have done it. And what that does is create chronic stress and chronic dis-ease and chronic tiredness and chronic thyroid dysfunction and chronic organ malfunction. Our entire system runs off this cycle. There is no way to escape that fact. We can ignore it, or we can be in ignorance, which most of us are, because we just were never taught. We were never told this very basic, very simple truth about ourselves and our bodies. And it's no surprise, because the less in harmony we are, the less less in tune we are with our cycle, the less power we have, the more we are overriding our natural instincts, overriding and pushing through and dysregulating our nervous system and dysregulating our body and dysregulating all of the functions of being a human woman. And so often when we end up paying the greatest is actually in perimenopause and menopause. We really end up paying the bill. But even you can get away with it, right, in your 20s, get away with it. And then things start to appear in our 30s and 40s. They're calling us back into this truth that when we live and structure our movement and structure our work and structure our life and structure our alone time and our travel around and with our moon cycle as much as we can, And we honor the urges within us to receive rest, the urges to receive alone time when they come, as well as the opposite, the urges to celebrate and explore and push and create and share. Then we are harnessing our superpowers in a way that is so incredibly beyond anything we can comprehend if we haven't yet entered into that practice. And remember, it takes a few months to get back in harmony. And if your body has been extremely dysregulated through hormonal birth control or antidepressants or pharmaceuticals, then it may take much longer, right? And we may need the support of a professional to come back into balance. But really, the bigger message is if you just start honoring your body and tracking and getting curious and do that for a few months, there is so much balance that comes back so quickly because our body doesn't make mistakes and our body is so smart and so intelligent and she knows what she's doing. And when we get the blockages, when we get the misalignments out of the way, when we get the ignoring of our cycles out of the way, she just comes back into harmony. And symptoms you've been experiencing for years may disappear completely, quickly, as a result of this one single thing. So why isn't this the first thing that is told to us when we enter into the doctor's office for anything that's wrong with us? All I can say is that, there's much to say about that, including that scientific research traditionally and still is not done on women. It is done on men. So this isn't even actually a part of Western medicine's like conversation around health. Because, and why isn't scientific research done on women? Because women are 4 different people through the month. We are 4 different freaking systems through the month because our hormones shift so dramatically in 4 distinct patterns through the month. And that's why it's really hard to research us. It's really hard to make us scientific subjects. So really, we have to be our own scientist and our own doctor by coming back into a trust of the cycles of our body that mirror the intelligent cycles of nature that organically operate in harmony and health that nourishes our entire galaxy, as well as our bodies, as well as all of life on Earth. This is the power we tap into when we honor our cycle. So I'm hoping myself that next cycle will be, it's really cool because, right, it took me I think next cycle will be more organic. So it took me, for 3 off cycles, it took me like 2 to get back. We'll see. But I pray that I have the wisdom to anchor as much as possible and to avoid that in the future. And it happens, right? And what can I do? I'm resting. I'm honoring what's true. I'm honoring the way I feel. I'm honoring, like, if I feel like I'm bleeding when I'm supposed to be ovulating, I'm acting like I'm bleeding, right? Like I'm resting as much as possible. I'm taking walks instead of doing a run. So may you honor where you're at in your cycle. If you have not downloaded an app like Clue, please do. It is so simple. You just track your period. You can also track symptoms if you'd like. But I always recommend, this is my number 1 tool for self-knowledge as a woman, get your tracker if you don't have it already. But if you're in Body Temple, it is part of your Moon Cycle Magic book. From my womb to yours. Mwah.